Beloved, hear me today. When God wakes you up in the morning, He's not just giving you another day. He's giving you another chance, a fresh start, a clean slate, a divine opportunity to think differently, walk differently, and rise differently, because your life will always move in the direction of your thoughts. And if God is going to elevate you, He must first renew your mind. Today, we're not asking God for ordinary strength. We're asking Him for a supernatural cleansing, a cleansing of the mind, a washing of the thoughts, a purifying of every place the enemy tried to plant doubt, fear, anxiety, and confusion. Because the battlefield is not around you, it's within you. And whoever controls your thoughts controls your direction. So this morning we declare, Lord, cleanse my thoughts, renew my mind, align me with your will. When negative voices rise up, when old memories try to resurface, when fear tries to invade, God's truth becomes your shield. His word becomes your filter. His presence becomes your covering. You don't have to be imprisoned by yesterday's thinking. You don't have to repeat old patterns. You don't have to bow to the lies the enemy whispered in the dark. Why? Because the God who made your mind can transform it, strengthen it, and restore it. You see, a renewed mind doesn't react. It responds. A renewed mind doesn't crumble. It stands. A renewed mind doesn't accept defeat. It sees victory before victory arrives. When God renews your mind, He renews your perspective. And when He renews your perspective, He renews your path. And when He renews your path, He renews your destiny. So today, you're not walking with the weight you carried yesterday. You're not chained to old mindsets. You're not held hostage by old habits. God is cleansing you, strengthening you, lifting you, and preparing you for what your eyes have not seen and your ears have not heard. Lift your heart and declare boldly, Lord, wash my thoughts, purify my mind, remove what you did not plant, restore what I have lost, and renew me from the inside out. Because when your mind is renewed, your faith becomes stronger. Your steps become bolder. Your spirit becomes anchored. Your vision becomes clearer. Your purpose becomes unstoppable. Listen closely. Your mind is the steering wheel of your entire life. What happens in your mind determines what happens in your day, your decisions, your habits, your character, and ultimately your destiny. If your thoughts stay small, your life stays small. If your thoughts stay defeated, your progress stays limited. But the moment your thinking shifts, everything in your life begins to shift with it. Your mind determines your momentum. You can pray, you can work hard, you can push, you can hustle. But if your mind isn't aligned with where God is trying to take you, you'll keep hitting invisible barriers. The enemy doesn't have to steal your health, your finances, or your opportunities when he can attack your thoughts. Because once he slows down your thinking, he slows down your life. That's why the first place God brings transformation is not your surroundings, it's your mind. Here's the hook. Your life rises only as high as your thoughts allow. If your thinking doesn't grow, you won't grow. If your thinking doesn't stretch, your future can't stretch. Your thoughts are either a launching pad or a prison cell. They're either pushing you forward or pulling you backward. Every breakthrough in your life begins with a breakthrough in your mind. Every blessing you step into requires a mindset strong enough to hold it. God can open a door for you, but if your thoughts are full of fear, insecurity, or self-doubt, you'll talk yourself out of walking through it. You'll sabotage your own progress because your mind isn't prepared for what your spirit is praying for. Your thoughts are seeds, and seeds grow into destiny. If you plant doubt, you grow hesitation. If you plant fear, you grow limitations. If you plant faith, you grow courage. If you plant truth, you grow strength. That's why you must be intentional about what you allow to take root in your mind. Don't let every thought run freely. Don't let every voice gain access. Don't let every memory shape how you move. Some thoughts have to be rejected the moment they appear. Some thoughts have to be replaced with truth. Some thoughts have to be silenced before they steal your momentum. Hook, you cannot rise above the level of the thoughts you consistently entertain. You may have a dream so big it keeps you awake at night, but if your thoughts are still tied to old failures, old fears, and old versions of you, that dream will stay stuck. You can't walk into a new season with a defeated mindset. You can't experience a higher level with lower level thinking. You can't speak victory while meditating on defeat. Your mind was designed to be powerful. God gave you the ability to imagine, to think creatively, to problem solve, to discern, to plan, to dream, and to visualize possibilities long before they become reality. Everything great in your life first appears in your thoughts before it ever shows up in your hands. But the enemy knows that too. That's why he tries to exhaust your mind, distract your mind, pollute your mind, and overload your mind. Because if he can get inside your thoughts, he doesn't need to touch anything else. A discouraged mind leads to a discouraged life. A distracted mind leads to a divided life. A doubtful mind leads to a delayed life. Hook, the thoughts you agree with become the life you live. So when God begins cleansing your thoughts, he is actually speeding up your momentum. He is clearing the path for your purpose. He is removing mental weights you didn't even know were slowing you down. Fear, comparison, overthinking, insecurity, guilt, regret, bitterness, doubt. Because once your thoughts are aligned with truth, once your mind is renewed, once your thinking is lifted, nothing around you can keep you from moving forward. Hear this clearly. There are battles in your mind that are too heavy for human strength. There are thoughts you've tried to control, habits you've tried to break, and worries you've tried to silence, but they keep returning, pressing, and overwhelming you. And the reason is simple. You were never designed to fight mental warfare alone. You were created to depend on a power greater than yourself. Hook, what you can't control, God can cleanse. There are moments when your thoughts feel like a storm, loud, violent, unpredictable. You try to speak peace into yourself, but anxiety keeps echoing. You try to focus on hope, but fear keeps interrupting. You try to move forward, but old memories try to drag you backward. And right when you feel like you're losing the battle in your mind, God steps in with a gentle but powerful reminder, this is not your fight to win by yourself. When you surrender your mind to God, you're not giving up, you're giving him access. Access to the places you hide. Access to the thoughts you don't say out loud. Access to the burdens no one knows you carry. Access to the pain you tried to bury but still feel. Because God doesn't just see the surface of your thoughts, he sees the roots. He knows the wound behind the worry, the memory behind the fear, the lie behind the insecurity, the trauma behind the anger. And where you see chaos, he sees what needs cleansing. Where you see failure, he sees what needs healing. Where you see confusion, he sees what needs renewing. Hook, you can manage your thoughts, but only God can purify them. There are thoughts the enemy planted years ago, thoughts that made you doubt your worth, question your strength, or shrink your identity. Those thoughts didn't come from God, and they don't belong in your future. But they've stayed because you tried fixing them with willpower instead of surrender. You tried controlling them instead of releasing them. You tried suppressing them instead of exposing them to God's light. When God cleanses your mind, he doesn't just remove toxic thoughts. He replaces them with truth. He removes the lie and plants his promise. He removes the fear and plants his peace. He removes the shame and plants his grace. He removes the confusion and plants clarity. Hook, God doesn't clean halfway. When he starts a work in your mind, he finishes it completely. There are burdens you've carried so long that you think they're normal. You've lived with negative thinking for so long that you assume it's part of your personality. You've walked with doubt and fear for so many years that you started believing that's just who you are. But God is saying that what has become normal to you is not natural for you. You were never meant to live with mental heaviness. You were created to live with spiritual clarity. And when you say, God, cleanse my mind, you're inviting him to break cycles you couldn't break. You're inviting him to silence voices you couldn't silence. You're inviting him to uproot patterns you couldn't uproot. You're inviting him to do what your strength, discipline, and strategies failed to do. Hook, where your strength ends, his cleansing begins. God steps into the hidden corners of your mind, the places you don't talk about but deeply feel. He steps into the places where doubt hides. He steps into the places where fear whispers. He steps into the places where insecurity works quietly. And when his presence enters, darkness has to exit. Because God's cleansing is not gentle in power. It is gentle in love, but fierce in authority. When he washes your mind, everything that does not belong must bow. Every lie must break. Every weight must lift. Every thought that fights your peace must surrender to his truth. This is the beauty of surrender. You give God permission to clean what you've been trying to control. Listen carefully. You are not a prisoner of your past thoughts, your past habits, or your past decisions. You are not stuck in cycles because you're weak. You're stuck because your mindset keeps replaying the same patterns. And until your mind changes, nothing else will. But the moment God renews your mind, the grip of those old patterns begins to break. Hook. A renewed mind doesn't just think differently, it lives differently. Some people wonder why they keep repeating the same behavior, falling into the same traps, responding with the same emotions, or attracting the same pain. It's not because they want to stay where they are, it's because their mindset has been shaped by years of survival, not transformation. You can change your environment, but if your thoughts stay the same, the old patterns will find you again. But when God renews your mind, he interrupts the cycle. He steps into the memories that were shaping your fears. He steps into the wounds that were shaping your behavior. He steps into the lies that were shaping your identity. And when he renews your mind, he does more than inspire you. He rebuilds you. Hook, the moment your mind shifts, your entire life takes a different direction. A renewed mind creates new responses. You stop reacting out of emotion and start responding out of wisdom. You stop panicking and start trusting. You stop replaying the past and start expecting the future. You stop clinging to fear and start holding on to faith. Old patterns break because a new mindset refuses to feed them. A renewed mind says, I don't think like that anymore. I don't speak like that anymore. I don't fear what I used to fear. I don't bow to what once controlled me. When your mind is renewed, the chains fall off long before your situation changes. Freedom starts internally. Transformation starts invisibly. Breakthrough starts in the silence of your thoughts, because once your mind shifts, your life eventually catches up. Hook. You cannot walk into a new season while thinking with an old mind. Some patterns repeat because your mind is still connected to the version of you God is trying to heal you from. You're carrying yesterday's mindset into today's opportunities. You're approaching new doors with old fears. You're stepping into new seasons with old expectations. And those patterns can't break until your mind is washed, renewed, and elevated by God. When God renews your mind, he breaks the rhythm of your old behavior. Suddenly, things that once triggered you no longer have the same power. Thoughts that once scared you no longer intimidate you. Habits that once controlled you no longer define you. Temptations that once pulled you in no longer feel appealing. You begin to see yourself differently. You begin to speak differently. You begin to decide differently. You begin to move differently. That's how patterns break, not by force, but by transformation. Hook. God doesn't just break patterns. He replaces them with purpose. When your mind is renewed, the old cycle can't continue because the old you no longer exists. You start making decisions from a place of strength instead of fear. You start believing what God says instead of what your past says. You start building habits that align with destiny instead of habits that protect dysfunction. A renewed mind gives you the ability to finally walk away from what used to trap you. Not because the pattern disappeared, but because you no longer think the way the pattern needs you to think. You've grown, you've matured, you've shifted. And once the mind rises, everything connected to it rises too. Hear this with your whole heart. What you allow into your mind today will show up in your life tomorrow. Thoughts are not harmless. Thoughts are builders. Every thought is constructing something in you. Some thoughts build confidence, clarity, and courage. Others build fear, insecurity, and hesitation. You may not see it happening, but your thoughts are quietly shaping the direction of your future. Hook, your mind is the gate to your destiny. Whatever you let in today will lead you somewhere tomorrow. This is why you must treat your thoughts like treasure. You wouldn't let anyone handle gold carelessly. You wouldn't let a thief walk into your home without a fight. So why let destructive, negative, or depressing thoughts walk freely into your mind without resistance? Why let thoughts that don't align with your purpose sit in the most important place of your life, your inner world? Hook, every thought you entertain is either feeding your purpose or starving it. If you allow worry to stay, it will grow roots. If you allow doubt to stay, it will take authority. If you allow comparison to stay, it will steal your identity. If you allow fear to stay, it will paralyze your calling. But the same is true with truth. If you allow faith to enter, courage begins to rise. If you allow peace to enter, clarity begins to settle. If you allow God's promises to enter, strength begins to build. Your mind is a garden, and every thought is a seed. What you water grows, what you ignore dies, what you feed multiplies. That's why some people stay stuck for years, not because they lack opportunity, but because they keep feeding the thoughts that work against their future. Hook, your life will always move in the direction of your dominant thoughts. If you think small, you'll live small. If you think defeated, you'll walk defeated. If you think fearful, you'll behave fearful. If you think unworthy, you'll settle for less than you deserve. But when your mind starts thinking in agreement with God, your life starts moving in the flow of God's purpose. You stop seeing obstacles as walls and start seeing them as doors. You stop seeing battles as threats and start seeing them as opportunities for breakthrough. You stop seeing yourself as limited and start seeing yourself as strengthened, equipped, and empowered. You have to protect your mind from every voice that contradicts your calling. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts. Not every environment deserves influence over your emotions. Not every opinion deserves to be planted in your spirit. Some voices must be silenced. Some memories must be released. Some thoughts must be rejected the moment they appear. Hook, what you meditate on becomes the map your life follows. If you meditate on problems, you walk in stress. If you meditate on pain, you walk in bitterness. If you meditate on failure, you walk in hesitation. But if you meditate on truth, you walk in wisdom. If you meditate on God's promises, you walk in boldness. If you meditate on purpose, you walk in direction. Your thoughts are not random. They are powerful forces shaping the atmosphere of your life. And whatever atmosphere dominates your mind eventually becomes the environment of your future. So be intentional about what you allow to sit in your mind. Don't let temporary emotions create permanent patterns. Don't let old wounds shape new seasons. Don't let negative voices override the truth God is speaking over you. Your future is too important to be shaped by careless thinking. Your purpose is too valuable to be influenced by toxic thoughts. Your calling is too significant to be shaped by voices that don't see what God has placed inside you. What you allow into your mind will direct your steps, influence your choices, shape your habits, and ultimately determine the life you experience. Listen closely. Your feelings are powerful, but they are not always reliable. Your emotions can rise and fall with circumstances, with the opinions of others, or with the memories of yesterday. And if you let your emotions dictate your life, you will live in constant turbulence, pulled every which way by fear, doubt, and frustration. But there is a truth that stands above every feeling, a truth that does not change with circumstances, and that is the word and the promises of God. Hook, divine truth, is the anchor your mind needs when emotions are raging like a storm. Too often, people live reactive lives. They make decisions based on how they feel rather than what is true. They respond to situations with panic instead of prayer. They speak words in anger instead of faith. They retreat in fear instead of moving in courage. And all of this happens because they allow their emotions to override their understanding of God's truth. Hook. Feelings are temporary, but truth is eternal. Imagine waking up every day guided by feelings alone. Some mornings you would rise confident. Other mornings you would rise defeated. Some days you would see opportunity. Other days you would see obstacles. Some mornings you would walk in courage. Other mornings you would crumble in fear. Life would be unpredictable, unstable, and exhausting. That is exactly what happens when emotions are allowed to dominate your mind. But when your mind is anchored in God's truth, a shift happens. Even when the storm rages, your peace can remain. Even when the pressure is high, your clarity can hold. Even when the enemy whispers lies, your confidence can stand firm. Truth becomes a lens that filters every circumstance, every memory, every thought. Hook, truth doesn't bend to feelings. It transforms feelings. When you feed your mind with promises, your emotions begin to align with reality. When you remind yourself of God's faithfulness, fear loses its power. When you declare his goodness, anger dissipates. When you meditate on his sovereignty, doubt retreats. You don't ignore your feelings, but you refuse to be ruled by them. Instead, you allow divine truth to guide your responses, shape your perspective, and form your decisions. Too many people collapse under the weight of their feelings because they think emotions are proof. I feel overwhelmed, therefore I am defeated. I feel unworthy, therefore I have no purpose. I feel scared, therefore I must retreat. But truth says differently. Truth says that your value is not determined by your mood. Truth says that your purpose is not determined by your fear. Truth says that God's plan is still unfolding even when your feelings suggest otherwise. Hook, feelings fluctuate, but God's word never fails. Your emotions can lie, exaggerate, and mislead you, but truth is consistent, unwavering, and powerful. Truth gives your mind stability. Truth gives your steps direction. Truth gives your heart courage. And when your mind embraces truth over feelings, you gain a perspective that is unshakable, a peace that is unmovable, and a strength that cannot be taken by circumstance. Your life will always reflect what dominates your mind. If feelings dominate, you will live inconsistent, reactive, and unstable. If truth dominates, you will live confident, bold, and purposeful. You cannot rise above the level of your understanding of truth, and you cannot anchor your life in a stormy sea of feelings without sinking. Hook, let your mind be ruled by unchanging truth, not shifting emotion. When you choose truth over feelings, your response to every situation changes. You stop panicking when trials come. You stop doubting when opportunities appear. You stop quitting when challenges press. You start acting from faith, not fear. You start speaking words of life, not despair. You start walking boldly in the direction of God's promise. No matter how you feel in the moment, divine truth doesn't just correct your thinking, it reshapes your entire emotional landscape. It teaches your heart what to believe, guides your steps where to go, and protects your spirit from the chaos that unchecked emotions bring. Hook. Your mind will only experience peace and clarity when truth outweighs emotion. Listen carefully. Transformation doesn't begin with circumstances. Change doesn't start with your environment. Real change begins in the battlefield of the mind. Your thoughts are the launch pad for everything you will ever become. The moment you choose to think differently, the moment you choose to reject old patterns and embrace new truths, the gears of transformation begin to turn. Hook, the tiniest decision in your mind can spark the biggest breakthrough in your life. Many people wait for external conditions to improve before they allow themselves to grow. They wait for the right opportunity, the right relationship, or the right timing. But God designed your mind to be the starting point of victory. Your external world will never change until your internal world does. Your thoughts shape your decisions shape your actions, and your actions shape your destiny. Hook. Change begins inside before it ever shows outside. You have to decide to think differently before you can act differently. You have to see possibilities in your mind before you can step into opportunities in reality. You have to imagine victory before you can walk into triumph. If you continue to replay old failures, rehearse old fears, and repeat old lies, you will continue to live the same way you always have. But the moment you choose a new mindset, everything shifts. A renewed mind doesn't just feel stronger, it behaves stronger. It doesn't just imagine better, it moves better. It doesn't just hope, it acts in alignment with purpose. You cannot experience what you have not first allowed your mind to accept. You cannot step into what you are not first willing to think. Hook. The way you think today determines what you can achieve tomorrow. Some people underestimate the power of a single decision to shift their thinking. They underestimate the power of intentionally rejecting negative thoughts and replacing them with faith-filled, purpose-driven thoughts. Every victory in life began with a choice in the mind, a choice to rise above fear, to reject lies, to focus on possibility rather than limitation. Every giant leap starts with a small shift in perspective. When you choose to think differently, you break the cycle of defeat. You stop reacting to old patterns. You stop responding the way you always have. You refuse to be controlled by past mistakes, old fears, or lingering doubts. You make a conscious decision to step into alignment with God's promises. And that decision begins a chain reaction of growth, clarity, and strength. Hook. Transformation is not a matter of chance. It is a matter of choice. Your mind is a battlefield where victories are won or lost before they ever manifest in your life. If you choose to feed it with fear, limitation, and negativity, you remain stuck. If you choose to feed it with truth, faith, and vision, you will rise. Every thought you allow, every belief you embrace, every perspective you adopt sets the trajectory of your life. It's not enough to hope for change. It's not enough to pray for improvement. True transformation requires intentional, conscious action in your thinking. It requires a decision to reject old mindsets and embrace God-centered, truth-driven thoughts. The moment you make that decision, your entire life begins to shift. Hook. Your mind is the engine of your destiny. Fuel it with truth, and it will drive you toward victory. The power to create change is not in waiting, wishing, or circumstance. It's in the choices you make today in the secret chambers of your mind. It's in your ability to take control of your thoughts, to declare what you will think about, to align your mind with purpose, and to refuse to return to old destructive patterns. Once your mind chooses to think differently, action follows, behavior follows, habits follow. Opportunities follow. Your life begins to move in alignment with the new vision you have allowed your mind to embrace. Hook. Every new life begins with a renewed mind. And every renewed mind begins with a single choice to think differently.